1,000 alumni in Singapore. We have over 200 who are regularly and actively engaged. And we have more than 60 active volunteers in Singapore, so thank you to all of you. We have 50 graduates working and studying here at Hwa Chong Institution. 51?
One just joined.
and more welcome. The UWA alumni are engaged in many activities in Singapore, including and very importantly, supporting our students and new graduates, both personally and professionally, as mentors and as friends. I'd like to offer a special acknowledgement to those of you who are active in the Singapore Alumni Network for your commitment to creating a welcoming alumni community in Singapore. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the Singapore Network Committee, who are many of whom are here tonight. And if you could maybe stand and just let people know who you are. I think you're scattered around the room, led by Stephen Chu. And if you haven't connected with I'm popping my teeth. If you haven't connected with people on the committee before, please feel free to at the reception afterwards. I know they'd love to talk with you. So tonight, we're talking about education, both globally and in Singapore specifically. And we're very fortunate to have with us Professor Helen Wilde, who's the Dean of Education at UWA. And we're going to talk about what education needs to look like to foster leadership and to foster the leaders of tomorrow. It's a really interesting conversation. We have great panelists who have interesting perspective, and we have a number of educators in the room as well, who I welcome to join in the conversation. To open the program, I'm pleased to welcome Hwa Chong Institution Principal and UWA graduate, Dr. Han Chu Wang, who's going to give some opening remarks. So please welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm not going to give a speech, I'm going to tell a story. Now, I'm going to tell us a love story between Hwa Chong and UWA. Long time ago, long time ago, about 25 years ago, this school was a very conservative school, very easy to manage because it's very much exam focused. Every year, when we do well in the examination, we can just declare to the whole world, oh, we are the best. Right? So it was very easy to manage. But there was a turning point in 1990. That was the year I finished my Master of Education course from the local National University of Singapore. It was a very tough course, but I learned a lot of things. The most important lesson I learned from that particular Master of Education course was that I understand what is independent learning. I understand what is authentic learning. So I told myself, one day I hope all my students will know how to do a proper research. So I started off with a small R&D seminar in my school in 1990. So every year I have to encourage about 3 to 5 teachers to do some kind of action research. And at the end of the year, we will have a small seminar, just one morning, and they will present the papers. I try to encourage them to pursue an MF course in NIE, but it was impossible. The reason is very simple. It was torturing. All the courses in our local NIE Master of Education course start from 6 p.m. and end at 10 p.m. So can you imagine teachers like us, we have to work from 7 in the morning until about 4 to 5 in the evening, and 6 o'clock is the start of the course and end at 10 o'clock. It's almost impossible. when I joined that particular course, at the beginning of the year, we have about 20 students. In the middle of the year, left half. Attrition rate was very high. By the end of the year, only 3 of us graduated. So beside me, I have another friend who is now the director of NIE. So it was difficult. I tried to encourage my colleagues to pursue, but so far, nobody likes to do it. The turning point come at the turn of century. So my friend mentioned, my colleague, is he here today?
No.
Mentioned is not here. So he told me, oh, do you know that UWA actually conduct master education course in Singapore? And they are very flexible in terms of schedule. So I said, okay, let's talk to their boss. I can't remember exactly who I talked with, but I think it's either Keith Punch or Roger Speed, right? So it was a very easy negotiation. In fact, I wouldn't even call it negotiation. We came to agreement almost immediately. So in 2001, we started our first cohort UWA Master of Education course, and we never looked back. 3 years later, Professor Punch came to me and said, we already have 3 batches of our master students, so they are all ready to do doctoral program. So he tried to persuade me to start the EdD class in Hwa Chong. That wasn't my plan at all. I said, oh, I'm happy with masters, so there's no need to go on to EdD. But he persuaded me, he said, no, don't worry, it's not too difficult. So I said, well, we managed to persuade about 10 teachers from Hwa Chong to join this class, and I think there are another 10, 5 to 10 from other organizations. So we started the first batch of EdD in 2004, and I personally joined the class to find out how difficult or how easy it was to be in this class. Right? Well, it wasn't too difficult. I think most of us graduated with a degree. Some took 3 years, some took more than 4 years, but anyway, all of us finished. Luckily, I'm not the last one to finish. So you can see, we could definitely see the advantage of studying an EdD program in our school, because in 2004, we started this integrated program whereby our students are not required to do O-level, all students proceed on to A-level. And we try to change the exam-focused curriculum to a research-based curriculum. And many of my colleagues actually did research in the IB. So whatever they do actually help us to learn about the implementation of IB. So I thought this is a very good idea. So immediately, the foreign batch formed. Right? In fact, the second batch was much bigger. We had 20 over teachers opted to do EdD just from Hwa Chong, plus another 10 from outside. I think it was about 30 students taking that particular cohort. And our focus for that particular cohort was future school, where students doing research related to borderless learning. Right? And at that time, you find that I started the R&D seminar with just 3 to 5 papers every year. Right? By the year 2011, we have about 30 to 50 papers. You can see, and we can choose, because we can't afford to have 50 papers being presented as in the one conference. So we are able to choose out of 50, usually about 25 to 30 papers to be presented. And that particular cohort, because it was so successful, so many people did the research on borderless learning, we published a book that document all the research in this area, and we get our minister to launch it. Right? So now, again, after that, I don't know what happened. Year after year, I understand we are in the 5th batch now, right? So only every 2 years, Joseph will come to me, ask me to sign the agreement. I say, time to renew agreement. Okay, I'll just sign. I just ask him any change in price. That's my only concern. So I asked him to compile some data for me. I'd like to know over the years how many batches of students have gone through. So he told me since 2001 we have 14 cohorts of master education students, total 182 candidates, 40% from Hwa Chong and 60% from external organization, not too bad. For EdD, we have 5 cohorts with 76 candidates, 41% from Hachong, right? And 59 from external agency. Many of our teachers have published a paper, right? This is one example. I think Dr. Chia Hui Ping is our Director of Studies. She did a research on cross-national science research collaboration between AOS in United States and Hachong. And that paper was published in Business and Education, and in fact it caught the attention of Nature. And so Nature published another article on this particular research as well. Right? It also caught the attention of the local media. Right? In fact, when we first started, there were quite a few reports, but later on in life, I think Straits Times reported about it. They want to know, where do we find time to do research while we are teaching? Right? That was the interesting story. What happened to my students? I started off with my student in mind. Right? I wanted my student to be able to do research so that they can enjoy learning. So today, I'm proud to share with you that just science research alone, this year we had more than 100 students qualify for the finals of the Singapore Science and Engineering Fair. This is the most challenging science fair in Singapore. To qualify for the finals, that means you must have a very good research done. Right? So, 23 groups were given an award. One of them had sent to the US to participate in the International Science and Engineering Fair. This is not the first time our students are sent to the US for the International Science Fair. Right? So last year, you can see from here, this group won the second prize. That means second prize in the world. So that means the quality of research done by a student has reached world-class standard. So this is something that we are very proud of. If you include all other research, including social science research, humanity research, or social science research related to China, all in all, I can estimate that we have about 40 to 50% of students doing some form of research every year. Well, I have not reached 100% yet, right? But I think we have reached a tipping point. Right? If we really want to push for 100%, I can easily do it. All I need to do is say it's compulsory. Everybody must do it. I don't think there will be any. I don't think there's any argument because there are already 50% of people who can do it. All they need to do is to join their friends. Right? But I wouldn't like to do it. I prefer them to volunteer and let them find the joy of doing research on their own. Now, this would not have been possible without UWA. These are the professors that have been working closely with me, right? We have Vicky and Mani is here today, right? Tom, Mark is here, right? Roger is first generation Dean, right? And of course, our lovely Helen. Thank you very much. I think without UWA, we wouldn't have a research culture in Hachong. Thank you.
Isn't that amazing? Congratulations. So that speaks to, I think, the quality of our graduates, also the quality of the opportunities to find pathways back into UWA, the qualities of the teaching and learning and opportunities to engage in the UWA community long after you graduate. So hopefully that's an example for all of us, just a wonderful thing. And now I'm going to introduce you to some more of our graduates, starting with Karen Lam, who is moderating our panel discussion tonight. Karen is a graduate as well at the University of Western Australia, and for close to 20 years, she has been a media and business consultant. Her company, WordCom Training and Consultancy, was formed in 1997, and it helps organizations with their presentations and media communications. In 2012, she returned to her first love, which is television, as host and series producer of the business personality series, Power List Asia on Channel News Asia. She is an anchor for the nightly News 5 at 7 and News 5 at 9, leading interviews with newsmakers around the world. She also produced stories for the weekly business program, Money Mind. So please welcome Karen and the rest of our panel.
Thank you very much, Brenda. And thank you all. May I convey my warmest welcome to all of you. I think it's amazing that you take the time after a very, I am sure, very busy week and a very busy day to come and spend this time with us. I'm here only because I am a graduate of the University of Western Australia, and I did not graduate with a commerce degree, nor a science degree, nor an engineering, nor an education degree. I graduated with what most people consider a useless degree, which is an arts degree. And I am a perfect example of the topic at hand, the future of education, because when my parents sent me off to study the arts in Perth, they thought I had no future at all. So today, I'd like to nudge them every now and then and go, you know, they're not that bad. So this is where we are. This is going to be a very exciting topic, and we have a very unusual panel to speak with us and to discuss this topic. And I say unusual because we're talking about education, we're talking about the future of education, but none of them are academics. God bless your heart. Academics, you do have a place in society, but none of them actually are academics, and none of them are really, in the strictest sense of the word, educators as well. So, for what they are people who are on the ground, if you like. They're the grassroots. They're the people in touch with industry leaders. And I think that's what makes the conversation today relevant, because we want to hear what the industry is looking for and how education can be molded in the years to come to fit and to match that need. So, I would like to introduce to you who they are. And to my right, this is Harish Shah. Harish has started his own consultancy. It's called StratServe Consultancy. He is what's called a futurist. Can I just see a show of hands, unless it's only just me? Has anyone heard of the word futurist? Okay, so it's 50-50, so I'm in the lower part of the 50. I had not heard of what a futurist does until I met with Harish. And so to translate what he does to the rest of you who don't know what a futurist does, I think, if you don't mind me saying, you're a modern day fortune teller. You look into a crystal ball and you essentially tell people what the future holds.
No. So if you want the results of the next soccer game for whichever team you support, don't come to me.
But if you want any other trends towards the future, this is the man to speak to.
We can talk about it.
Yeah. So Harish graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce degree at UWA. He did what's called a triple major, and this is a futurist for you. In Singapore, we have this term called Pao Ka Liao, which essentially means I'll cover every aspect so that my future is secure. So that is what Harish has done with a triple major. And we have also Dr. Xiao Bileng. Bileng also runs her own consultancy, and it's called Continuum Learning. She specializes in service excellence training. And lo and behold, Bileng, I just discovered, graduated. Her undergraduate degree was in biochemistry, and then she went on later on to do a PhD in business, international business at UWA. So she is the person to speak to when it comes to adult education. Next, we have Michelle Chen. As you can see, Michelle, compared to the rest of us, she has glowing skin, much less lines than the rest of us. And she is among us the most freshly minted member of the workforce. She just graduated from UWA 2 years ago, and she now works with OCBC in the business banking division as a manager there. So I'm looking forward to your perspective on what you received early on in your education and how it's relevant today, since you're just fresh out of school. And of course, finally, we have Dr. Marcus Lee. You can see he looks really buff, but that's also because it's totally related to what he does. He works at the Singapore Science Institute as the head of biomechanics. Now let me ask you, do you know what biomechanics is? Okay, so I'm not there. I'm not that bad after all. Biomechanics, as I understand it, and as Marcus has explained to me, is about the way the body works, the way the body moves. But what's also very interesting about Marcus, which will be very relevant to the conversation today as well, is this. Now, some of you are educators, you're teachers, so you might find some relief when you leave work and leave the hordes of students to go home. Marcus leaves work to go home to the hordes of students. That's because he's a mentor, he's a hall mentor at Victoria Hall, which is the hostel at Victoria School. So I don't know why he has done it, but he has chosen to make being with the kids, being with teenagers, something that he does at home on a personal basis. So we'll find out a little bit more of his perspective. So, the future of education. I think if we can start this conversation, I'd like to start off with the question that I suppose Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, would have probably asked, because that's one of his habits, to always begin with the end in mind. Right? So if we're talking about the future of education, therefore, the end of that is, what is the future? So I'm going to ask that question to, of course, none other than our futurist. What is the future, Harish? If we're talking about, you know, if we look at the K-12 continuum, so about a 15-year period, what will the future be? Particularly, let's confine this discussion to Singapore because it is country specific. What is the future of Singapore in 15 years?
Okay, I'll answer the question in reverse. Future of Singapore. Let's look at Singapore for where it is and what it is. It's a hub. It's a regional hub. It's a global hub in different senses, relying on international trade, on the global economy. We are very, very reliant on the interdependencies and the dynamics of the whole world at large. So we cannot really stand apart. So whatever happens to the world is exactly what happens to Singapore. So the future of the world 15 years from now is precisely the future of Singapore 15 years from now. So that's not a separate thing. You cannot isolate it. This is the first part of the question. Now going back to the first part of the question you asked was that, okay, what will the world be like, right? So 15 years from now, there's a lot we can tell from the clues we have in the present as to what will be. But let's focus this on work, on industry, on trade, for the purpose of this discussion on education. I want everyone in this room to do this. In your minds, think of a job, any job, that is non-graduate in nature, meaning it does not require a university degree. But of course, leave out the jobs that don't require education, such as, at least formal education, such as to be a footballer or to be a dancer or a circus performer or something like that. But think of a job, someone in your office, someone in your organization who does not have a degree but does the job. Think of that. Then you think of a job that does require a degree or a master's degree or a PhD, but requires only linear thinking, meaning there's a formula to it. There's a fixed set rule. There's a fixed set of rules to it. Think of that. Now there are 2 types of jobs that you're thinking of now, right? Those jobs, 70 to 80% of those will not be around 15 years from now, for a simple reason. Technology is enabling companies to automate them out of existence. We have arrived at advanced robotics, it's in hand today. Autonomous vehicles are just part of that game. We're talking about mass automation, however you want to pronounce it or whatever you want to call it. And you're looking at AI playing a greater role. And I'm not talking about sci-fi AI such as Skynet taking over the world and the human race is going to be enslaved. Nothing like that. But in terms that, when it comes to things like customer service, for example, it comes to purchases, for example, much of your dealings are going to be with AI-enabled information systems or software rather than human beings at the other end of the line. That's what we're talking about. So anything that requires linear thinking, which is non-strategic, anything that requires less than university level education, will those jobs still be around 15 years from today? Even in Singapore, as modern as and as ahead of the curve as it is? Probably. But Will there be as many people having the opportunity to do those jobs 15 years from now as compared to today? Probably not. You're looking at roughly 70 to 80% of disappearance simply because you don't pay wages to a computer. They're much cheaper.
That is quite a scary outlook. Because I read an article recently in the Financial Times, and it talks about how to robot-proof your children for the future. How to robot-proof your children for the future. And I think that's telling, because that and what you said essentially mirrors that. So my question, I suppose, would be then in this case is then, you know, how relevant is the education system today, and how is that serving the needs of what we're going to do, or what we're going to see in 15 years?
Okay, I think going forward, what the student receives in an educational setting format, it will project forward in terms of workplace learning. And when we talk about workplace learning, it's community-based. So learning has a purpose, and it's experiential. So then it then goes back to the needs. You talk about needs-driven learning. Are they needs for what purpose? So I'm a biochemist. Once I graduated, I've never been in the lab, because I suddenly had a realization, by nature I like to talk. So the best job will be in corporate training, because I'm paid to talk from 9 to 5:30. Yet whatever I learned as a biochemist during my science graduate days, banks employ me, because they say we have that critical thinking, we are analytical, we can zoom in and we can zoom out. So having said that, I think, like say for a teenager, in the school days, they may not have a very clear idea, but some of them, like me, for example, may not have a very clear idea what I want to be when I graduate. Yet, if you talk about a T format, there's this that horizontal line of that lifelong skills, even in schools, that teacher impart to us that I will carry with me. And I think one of the aspects of that would be the love for learning. So although I learn science, that love for learning continues, and I can transfer that to other contexts I'm put in. So in the T format, there's that vertical line, and that will be where we will explore deeper in that functional domain, where workplace learning then comes in for adult learning.
So that's you,
Yes.
but you're probably at the 99th percentile of the population. With your experience as an adult educator, you meet so many different people, so many different industries when you're out there in the training room. What do you see of the way they learn that is reflective of the kind of education that they received?
Okay, I think it will be getting people into that curiosity, that openness, and I think that's the beauty of education.
So are the people that you're training today that curious?
Okay, so I'm now having that privilege to work with this group of PMEs. I think you are very familiar with, the professional, manager, and executive. And this group that I especially get in touch with, they are in their 40s, 50s, and for whatever reason, as the society changes, they are out of job, restructuring, right-sizing. So I happened to come into contact with this community, and the pity is that transferable skills, which is an opportunity, and it is also a missed opportunity for some of them. Like this group of engineers, for whatever reason, and that restructuring, they are now out of placement. So we are now trying to share with this group of adult learners how to have that openness in terms of that career shift and to transform over. So some engineers tell us they don't want to be engineers anymore, they want to be bankers. Do they know what is in banking? Maybe not. So then, even like simple SWOT analysis, Michael Porter, competitive analysis. And so I think it's about sharing with this group of people that what they could then rediscover in the education, that we have equipped them, that lifelong learning, and that transferable skills in any opportunity they are in.
Do you find though that they are actually able to learn? Are they quick on the uptake when it comes to that?
I would love to say yes, just that I think learning is progressive, so there's this continuum of a spectrum of people. So we are in education because we see the goodness in people. So I like to say that, that cup can be filled. And if it is not filled up, the other half that is not filled with water is filled with air. Yeah. So how we then topple it up with them?
So Michelle, what about you? What are your thoughts on education? How What surprises did you come up, were you confronted with when you joined the workforce fresh out of uni?
I think this is something that shouldn't be too much of a surprise actually. When I was in uni, I focused a lot on studying, on memorizing things, trying to get high distinctions, just
You were
doing
from
my best.
UWA, were you?
Yeah.
We did that as well, didn't we?
Yeah. But then when I graduated, I first got a job at this private equity firm. And I thought, okay, great, I'm going to use all that I learned in school and then I'm going to copy and paste it right into my job. See, but that's the big surprise that you face. You realize that, okay, no, that's not how it is at all. What actually happens is, none of the actual content of the theories and everything was something that I could use directly in my first job. See, so that was a big surprise to me, and I didn't like it. So I left and I joined OCBC.
Sorry, what
Yeah.
didn't you like about it?
I didn't like my job because I was in treasury and trade execution, so I had this impression of what the division or what the department does. Even at the interview, she told me, okay, this is generally what they do. So I thought, oh great, I get to learn about trading, executing, I get to learn about investments. So I had this perception of what I would be doing. Or even then she told me, okay, as a fresh graduate, you'll be learning from the bottom, but you think that you'll be going up. But then when I was in the job itself, I realized that a lot of it was just very documentational work. I didn't meet people, I didn't talk to people, it didn't require thought processes, which is interesting because from what Harish said, I completely agree. Jobs like that in the future will be very automated. And I just thought, okay, this is not what I want to do. I love talking, just like you. I love talking. So
we can see that.
yeah. So I went to OCBC instead, and I realized that this job is not copy and paste. In fact, we have to really understand why we ask certain documents from the customers, why we are able to sign certain documents a certain way. And right now with the job that I'm doing, we work with different countries. So we have to know the jurisdictions, what documents are required. And it's impossible to try and memorize them, but if you understand the logic and the rationale behind the document you ask for, then you're able to manipulate that information to suit the different situations. So I think that from what I learned in uni, that thinking and that perspective is what helped me work right now. Yeah.
Do you think you learned that at uni, or did it go all the way back to college, secondary? When did you really start to pick up that analytical ability?
I think when I was in secondary school.
Really?
Yeah. Because in secondary school, I did 3 CCAs. Crazy. I did drama, I did debate, and I did dance. So all 3 were really good because debate helped me with the content of my work. They really taught you to go do your research, Google is your best friend, how to structure your arguments, your thoughts, bringing examples. And then drama helped me to be with your presentation, with your speaking, being comfortable in crowds. And then dance was with your posture, your muscle control, just being beautiful. Yeah, that was what really helped.
So, I mean, it brings up a couple of things, what you said. It brings up pertinent points. I mean, we're all facing, especially those of you who do have staff under you, this issue of how do we manage this generation of millennials. So you have someone like Michelle telling you that she's not satisfied just being dished out work to do. Millennials are always there to want to be inspired, to want to feel useful and that you're contributing. I think the other thing that you brought up was also the fact that you were involved in 3 CCAs suggests that experiential learning is something that has been incorporated into your learning in school, into your education. So Marcus, with the kids that you live with, how is the education that they're receiving in school being demonstrated in them today? Whether it's at school or whether it's in the hostel where they are supposed to be at home.
That's an interesting one. So Well, first of all, thanks for making me sound so noble to go back with all these students.
But you really just wanted free accommodation.
Exactly, yes. Actually, that is true. Because I spent 10 years in Perth, and when I came back, I was either going to rent or look for an alternative, and I was still in touch with my teachers from Victoria Junior College. So I knew that they had a beautiful place, looking at, near the East Coast. So I wrote in to the principal. I said, look, I've got this background, can I contribute? And then the rest is history, right? So the students who live there, they're mainly ASEAN scholars, so from all over Asia. We've got a lot of Chinese students, Indonesians, Thais. But it's only recently that we started taking in local students from Victoria School as part of the boarding program. So I don't teach, but I mentor them, make sure they study, and also I run a hall committee. So the hall committee is meant to make the hall environment a more conducive place for everybody, to help all these different students bond, create a sense of bonding. And so just running the hall committee has been really interesting because while I don't really know what goes on in school, I think at that age, many a times, a lot of the students I find are pretty good at the hows and the whats, but sometimes when it comes to the whys, it's not that clear. And I always think it's important to start with the whys. So when we organize activities for the kids, for the rest of the students, they always get really excited and say, all right, let's do this event and we need to do all these things, right? By the end of the day, what does this event serve? If the objective is to bond these students, then that should always be the starting point. And then my work at the Singapore Sports Institute, I'm a sports scientist, I do research as well, and I also supervise students from the university. And that's the same issue that I find. A lot of them are good at finding information in this age. They're good with sort of regurgitating, I find. But in terms of asking why, always asking, well, why do you do this? And why does this lead to this? I think that's one aspect that maybe I find is missing a little bit.
That's why I did an arts degree. You should bring me on board. Okay, so do you then find that, so how do you, or do you at all, attempt to I suppose, develop this aspect of them and to get them to experience learning? I know you don't teach, but in your interactions with them, how has this borne itself out?
I think is to be able to have very honest conversations with these students. To help them understand that recently I learned this equation. It's Q times A equals E. Okay? Q is quality, and that means your technical competencies, the quality of the work that you do. A is acceptance, and E is effectiveness. So I think we're coming through the Singapore education system. Your Q is usually pretty high because you're drilled, right? Your fundamentals are strong. But to actually truly get effectiveness, working with people, getting results, I think the A component of getting acceptance is equally important. And I would say perhaps in most schools, whether it's sports, whether it's organizations, I think when a company wants to try and, or a school wants to try and improve itself, right? Many times we say, okay, we send a kid to tuition or we do professional development for the staff. And let's say if your Q is already 8, your acceptance is 2, 8 times 2 is 16. Right? Well, I'm a scientist, so I like using numbers, I'm sorry. And if we increase the Q to 9, 9 times 2 is 18, so you've gained 2 points, right? But if our staff, if the students actually learn how to work with people, how to see things from people's starting points, how to create shared vision so that it's a win-win-win situation, then from a 2, if you just bump that up to 4, 8 times 4 is really 32. So just sort of having these discussions with the students and sort of getting them to think from different perspectives. That's probably how I go about my business.
And you're right. You pointed out that in Singapore we're very high on the Q, which is the quality part, and that's where in the education system every year you will find this in the media when Singapore, and I say when, not if, Singapore scores top in the PISA assessment. That's the what is it? Performance of the program for international student assessment, which essentially grades children or based on their math and science abilities. So Singapore and Shanghai are constantly competing for a top spot in the world. America is about in 28th or something like that. But Singapore and Shanghai are constantly in competition, and that's sort of like the holy grail for our education system. And we, well, I mean, rightly should take a lot of pride in the fact that we do so well, our kids do so well. Then the question is, you know, with that always in mind, to keep up that queue, how much room do we really have to boost the A? How much room do we really have to build the soft skills, to build the ability to work in teams, to build the ability to communicate? What do you think, Elaine?
I think going forward, I see teachers, educator as learning expert. So we have all our teaching, learning methodology. I think there's a whole lot of opportunity for us to create that experience where we can put our student in. And then after that, when they are in that experience, for us to then facilitate that learning. And then there's a lot of methodology out there, how you can do your debriefing. You put them in an experience to illustrate certain learning content. And we could, for example, like we do for even adult learners as well, what did you observe? The what, that offers observational part, then that relational part, that emotive part, how does it make you feel? And then we go into what we are very familiar with, the so what, and then the now what, to translate that into action. So I see going forward that creating of that experience and to enable them to reflect from the experience for that learning point. And then I think learning become more meaningful and engaging, and become active learning.
I was wondering whether teachers have time to do that in school. I mean, realistically.
So this is not something like outside our curriculum. It will be like, for example, I'm teaching a topic on perhaps like scanning the environment, on observation. I could easily then put in a project, so there's a context, and then that context come in. And I could quickly change that context to see are they then able to apply. So I think it takes some time for that transition, just that the skills out of it will be very valuable for the learners, which they can then continue into their adulthood as lifelong learning.
So what is the role of teachers? I mean, this is really the key question now. It's not about, it really isn't, I mean, content is important. We can never underestimate the importance of content. But in order to manipulate the content, in order for us to make that content applicable, that is the role of the teacher.
So to sum it up, I see teachers as learning experts, and then the student as content creator.
How different, Harish, do you think the role of the teacher is today as what it should be in 15 years? How will it evolve, do you think?
I think the evolution should be such that we continue hiring teachers, obviously, of course. The teaching job, I don't foresee it. I mean, there's no real objective evidence that tells you that they're going to disappear. But rather than hiring into jobs, I think what the question should really be is that what we should be hiring for, what you should be looking for, and what you should be developing when you look at teachers 15 years from now, is that what we should consciously be doing in every country, not just Singapore, is that don't hire people to do a job, or don't recruit people to train them to do a job, but recruit people to train them and then to do a job, or rather, not job, mission. Recruit and hire people for a mission, so the job disappears. So it's not an occupation anymore. There is a saying that teaching is a calling. It's a noble profession. We need to go one step further and take profession away as well. Just make it noble. Of course, everyone needs money to survive, so they'll need a salary. So they'll be occupied in that sense, that they'll have a salary. But what they'll be doing is, they'll be consciously, the teacher of the future is to consciously look at the needs of the industry, of the world, of the problems that need to be fixed, that won't be fixed by the time that the charges under him or her graduate. So how do I mold this person under my charge, each individual, in that direction, to be able to solve that when the time comes, when that person is ready to adulthood, past education. Basically, you need teachers who are not going to be teaching English, math, science anymore. Yes, those subjects will still exist. That's not going to change. The thought frightens me if that does, but that's not going to change. They're still going to be teaching English, math, science, history, literature, so on. But rather than teach those subjects, what the teachers will actually be teaching, or should rather be teaching 15 years from now, in fact today, is how to think. We still live in a world today, wherever you go in the world, I'm sorry, whatever the official stand or statement might be, what theme or declaration or ideological message might be, reality is we don't teach our children how to think, we teach our children what to think, even if the teachers are trained not to do that at the educational institutions. That's what happens in real life. So what needs to be done is teach our young how to think. I mean, just a show of hands here. How many of us here are well versed with systems thinking? Not a lot. How many of us here are well versed with design thinking? Okay. How many of us here are well versed with layered thinking? Humanity has worked itself into a state of complexity today that requires all these three things. I'm well versed in one, some of us here are well versed in none. We are lucky that we've got a few well versed in two. We need to be teaching our young, the current generation of students and future generations of students, all three, to be able to deal with the world of tomorrow. And those are the kind of teachers we need.
So it goes back to recruitment. That it's not about the teachers when they get into the classroom. That we have to deal with the issue, not a problem. We have to deal with the issue at the source, which is recruitment. So, what are your thoughts, Marcus, on this issue of recruitment? Now, should the recruitment of teachers therefore change? Should we be looking for more? And if we should, what should we be looking for when we recruit teachers?
Before I comment on that, I think just to add on to Harsh's point, I think in the near future or in the future, I think teachers need to assume the role of teachers as well as coaches. And it's quite a difference. So, as a teacher, you deliver knowledge, right? Because what you don't know. So it's got to be explicit, and the knowledge has got to be learned and hopefully internalized. But then when you transit to the role of a coach, you don't teach explicitly, you guide the discovery of knowledge, right? I mean, in sport, when I work with the national athletes, so when we come out with programs, we always say, well, even as a scientist, you need to know a little bit of pedagogy. So with the example of swimming, if someone doesn't know how to swim, and you just throw him to the water and he's meant to learn how to swim, we say that's a very implicit way of learning. If not wrong, based on literature, it says that, okay, you can learn that way, maybe not, you might drown before that, but the ceiling is quite low, and the learning is quite slow. And then if we've got the explicit way of teaching or instructioning, then you're kind of like spoon feeding the student, right? Or if the athlete needs to take a penalty in football, I say, all right, we're going to do from step 1 to step 10. They might learn pretty quickly, but once again, the ceiling is quite low, and the skill actually breaks down during high anxiety. Because if you're taking the penalty shot in the World Cup finals and you thought, all right, my coach told me to do step 1 to step 10, you won't be able to function well. So most of the time, what we do in sport is actually we create drills with a certain intention. So you design with intention and get the athletes or the students to go through these skills and then find teachable moments and say, all right, what do you just do then? So using constraints of the program or the drill for them to discover these skills themselves, so that it's more internalized. So I think that teachers still need to teach, but then perhaps through the project work, that's where students get coached and get these things. We talk about selection. I think at the end of the day, regardless of what systems you build, what policies you have, it still comes down to the people that you get. And at the Sports Institute, when we recruit people, or when I take interns in and supervise their final year projects, I always look out for not necessarily the most technically gifted student or staff. The grades do matter, I'll look at the grades, but I like having a conversation with this person. I want to see what this person is about. I want to see whether I feel that this person has tenacity, right? I want to see whether this person is curious. I want to see whether this person is passionate. And I think if you get the right people in there who believe in the value of education, and that's what Harish said, it's not just a job, but it connects at a much deeper level, that it means something to them, then I think we've got the right people in the teaching profession.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm mindful that even as we talk, as people who are on the ground, industry leaders, I'm mindful that as those of you who are teachers and academics, you're thinking through, we know that this has all been bandied around. The question is, how do we apply it? Because we still have a set curriculum to fulfill at the end of the day. And this is good to put into practice, but, and there's always that eternal but, how do we actually do that? Because this is a conversation, I'm not even sure whether we are qualified to answer that, but that would be something that we could carry that conversation on after we leave this auditorium.
If I may add on, although there's a set of curriculum and time to fulfill, like what I did for adult learners, and it could be like a 3 days workshop, and then there are certain objectives to be fulfilled. I would like to share with you, we always say content into context. So the content is what we need to cover. We can create a context for them, and then knowledge becomes alive in application.
Yeah, that's quite relevant. Yeah, and just continue, as I was saying, just continue the conversation and to really get to the bottom of what can we do to enhance that, in spite of the objectives that we still have to meet at the end of the day. I'm going to ask one question, not the last question, but I'm going to ask a question prior to opening the panel to you. So there are microphones there are 2 microphones here in this room, so if you do have any questions for them, we'd love to be able to hear from you, because definitely the more variety is a good thing. So I'd like now, so we've talked about critical thinking and ability to make people think while delivering content. Now, we've been talking a lot, or rather, the media's been talking a lot about the use of technology in schools. And I know, and I understand, Michelle, that you're quite tech savvy. So, in your experience, how do you think, how would you have liked to be made ready with the use of technology back in the day when you were in school, not too long ago?
Could you repeat the question again?
How would you like to see technology being used in the classroom?
Great. I think when we're students, when we're young and when we're much older, you have different perspectives, you have different goals, you have different things that catch your attention, things that you're interested in. And when you're younger, let's say in secondary school, it's in primary school maybe, it's a little bit harder to get students' attention and to get them to learn and to listen to you. And when I was there, not very long ago, I think if we use technology, sometimes the cool things like, whoa, it helps you to visualize better, or a video, or something in class that is not boring, it gets them excited. And sometimes when we are learning like literature, for example, for us to remember a particular theme, we always link it back to a story that we remember, a symbol that we remember that links everything together. So the little things are actually what made me remember things best. So for technology, in different kinds of subjects as well, I think maybe like a hologram or something, videos, arts, and even like the projector screen, being able to visualize and draw everything out would really help. But later on when we're at university, let's just give an example. At UWA, I don't know we used to do this a lot, but in my time we had lectures that were recorded and then posted on LMS, right? So a lot of students would rely solely on these lectures. So they don't go to class. They're just like, okay, I'm going to wait for the lecture to come out and I'm just going to watch it online. Technology, right? I'm just going to based on that. But a lot of people who did really well in school, I realized that the pattern was that was their backup. They would go to class and they would really, really be interested in the topic. After class they would go up to the lecturer. They wouldn't be afraid to ask questions. Why is it this way? how did you get to the answer? And they would really be keen and curious to how they got to the answer. And then they will look back at the lecture as a refresher, not as the core, So sometimes when we are at different stages of life, we also understand the importance of education differently. Yeah.
So it goes back again to that human interaction. So it's not just technology for the sake of technology.
Which is exactly why I said, for very practical reasons, teachers are always going to have to be around.
Yeah. Okay. If you have any questions, please stand by the mic so that I have an indication that there is a question coming up. But on this note on education, technology and the use of technology and distance use of technology for distance learning as well, what do you think is the impact of this onslaught of mass open online courses, MOOC, to traditional education?
If I could share with you an example that I was telling the group earlier. I have a nephew and she's in P4. So he's exposed to technology, and these days anything they will go iPad, even the iPhone. So one day I was at my mom's place and I saw he wrote a beautiful essay that the teacher asked him to write. And I thought that was certainly beyond what a P4 can do. So when I read through the essay and I asked him, what does this word mean? What do you mean when you write this paragraph? What were you thinking? He couldn't tell me. So I said, how did you then write this? He said, you cut and paste from the internet. I mean, plagiarism is another thing. So that made me then to think that for this group of students, and I think for even when I teach in the university for the undergraduate, they have information. They will know where to find information. And there's this learning community. I think the key thing will be how to synthesize it and to get them to test it. Is that right? What they find out from their friends. So technology can enable you. So what I'm sharing with you is the downside of it, because they just cut and paste, they may not even know what it is, as long as they fulfill the deadline to hand out the assignment. That's one. I mean, when we do this in the NTU, we are a little bit more stringent because the student upload their soft copy of that project. Straight away, that split of second, we will churn up, and then they can open their file, and we will highlight those that have similarity. That means what? You copy somewhere, you can code, straight away is one grade down. But for the primary school, they don't, you see. And so there's this aspect about value to teach them when they are young. Then I want to talk about the other aspect of technology because it helps us for learning community. And I'm quite big on PLN, which is personal learning networks. So like for example, I could be designing program, for my client in a corporate setting. I have a whole world of educators that break down in space and time that I can tap on their wisdom and their expertise. And then we can come together as a big community online. So there's this other wonderful aspect to technology.
So that mirrors in some way this MOOC, trend that people are coming together online. We would not have met at all, face to face, but we're learning together. So is that, you think, going to replace traditional education? Is it going to render UWA redundant now that we can access courses from Duke or UCLA online? And what's the point of paying good money to the universities just to essentially get sometimes the same, if not slightly better stuff?
I would suggest that whatever is happening right now as to what you described, online learning and the access that you, for example, is providing, it's a good thing because education is something that people require access to. If you want the humanity to improve, if you want the world to improve, you need to break the barriers, you need to bring down the walls. Someone from Timbuktu should be able to have access to a course at UWA. If you want the world to improve, you need to give access to everybody. You need to level the playing field. Because one child denied access today is one opportunity denied to the world tomorrow. That includes opportunities for all children. We don't want that. So we need to open the access. As far as paying fees goes, yes, the better universities charge more fees. There are ways to get free education even today, but how much those degrees are unfortunately worth in the market is a different story. Mostly. And it's an unfortunate story. I'm hoping for a world personally, and this gets very subjective here, I'll have to admit this, here's a caveat, it is subjective, but I'm hoping for a world where all quality, top-notch education is actually free to anyone who has the competency or credibility to deserve it. Then that raises another question that would probably be for a debate on another day. How on earth will education be funded? That's a different story. But if you want to level the playing field, if you want to benefit the world for the better, then education should have unlimited access for everyone, and it should be free. And whether UWA would ever